Madam Karuna Gopal Vartakavi. If I briefly introduce you, ma'am, Madam Karuna sits on the board of Engineers India Limited and also national in charge of BJP on women policies and research. Madam had been contributory in terms of the smart city mission of the Government of India and is also president of the Foundation for Futuristic Cities. To her credit, she has qualification from John F. Kennedy School of Government, Harvard University, US. She is a member of Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, UK, a distinguished fellow of India Foundation, and also a Rotary GSE scholar of IVLP, that is US Department of State institution. So I would like to invite you, ma'am, for your discourse.
Thank you very much, Dr. Neeraj Gupta, for this introduction. Good afternoon to all of you. I heard several good speakers before me who delved deeper into the corporate governance aspects. So I request you to listen to what I have to say in terms of corporate governance, as I would like to juxtapose it with how our Prime Minister's aspirations go for this nation. So what I will be speaking about today is perhaps a little eagle view of things, because what we are talking today is about Viksit Bharat, so developed India by 2047, and as people sitting on the boards of companies, how we have to align with the vision of the Honorable Prime Minister. So I would like to just speak about 4 points, and I would like to juxtapose, as I said, what Prime Minister has done and what we have to perhaps do from the company side. Let me start with the most important thing, that is the vision. Honorable Prime Minister's vision to take India to the next level and make it a developed nation by 2047, my friends, is rooted in reality. He speaks from, it is also based on demonstrated capability of the Honorable Prime Minister. Now, just to elaborate a little, when the Honorable Prime Minister took the stewardship of the country, our country was in 11th position in GDP terms. Our external debt was very high, rupee was very fragile, inflation was high, and if you recall, in the year 2013, I'm sure some of you who've been following the economy at that time, people were cautioned and perhaps advised not to buy and invest in gold. And that is the exact time when there was an external pressure to remove India from the BRIC bloc, Brazil, Russia, India, China, to remove India and to replace India with Indonesia, because Indonesia was growing fast and India was not. And manufacturing was at its lowest point. That's when the Prime Minister took over, and in just 10 years, see what he has done to the economy. He's today brought it to the 5th position. And today, if we are looking at the news, we know that Japan and Germany are not doing well. So obviously, in another very little time, we will go to the 3rd position, and that's it. So International Monetary Fund also categorically said that India will be a 5 trillion economy by 2027. So India, interestingly, what we have to know is that India not only remained in the BRIC bloc thanks to our Honorable Prime Minister's efforts, but recently some of the economists also compared it and said that we could perhaps be a part of the TIPS bloc. Now, what is TIPS bloc? TIPS is nothing but Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, and Singapore that are growing extremely fast. They are small economies, but they are growing very fast. So India, despite its size, has been compared to smaller countries, but agile countries. So this is what Prime Minister has done. And look at what is happening to the manufacturing. Manufacturing, as you know, we missed the 3rd industrial revolution. In the 80s, UPA has taken terrible decisions, and then we lost the 3rd industrial revolution, which means the gadgets, computers, hardware, every little thing was being imported from other countries. And India became paradoxically a marketplace for those. Now, look at what we are doing. We are manufacturing aircrafts, aircraft carriers. I don't even have to give the list. Yeah, the contribution to the GDP has grown phenomenally high. And just to give perhaps an interesting example is when at the World Economic Forum, when our IT Minister Ashwin Vaishnaji was there, one of the journalists asked him, perhaps in a disparaging way, how far has your manufacturing come? So he hasn't answered, but what he did was, he took out his iPhone 15, showed it to him, and said, this is manufactured in India. Today, if you look at the numbers, my friends, I think Apple Corporation was investing something like $7 billion some 10 years ago. Today, it is investing $49 billion into India. That is proof enough for us to know what a brilliant vision can do to the country. Now, coming to our companies, we sit on the boards of companies, we represent the corporate world. So the questions I have is, do we in our companies have such grandiose and virat vision like that of the Prime Minister? We need to ask ourselves, do we have that kind of a vision? Now, the vision that we have, has it been crafted and drafted collectively? Have we engaged with everyone? Have we interacted with everyone? The reason I'm asking this question, and the reason perhaps all of us have to ask this question is, when Prime Minister came out with his vision 2047, he had nothing less than 2,700 meetings with many, many ministries, 540 recommendations.
Oh.
And that is what is called consensus and a consensual process. So in our corporates, do we actually look at our vision that way? Do we craft them involving people? Let's assume we have that, but do we just keep them as wall pieces? Have we made any effort to ensure that that vision is institutionalized? Are our visions just embellishments on our brochures? Does every employee know what we stand for? I think the corporate sector should understand this perfectly to align itself to the vision, the Virat vision of the Honorable Prime Minister. So this is my first point. The second one, my friends, is about diversity. So you know that Honorable Prime Minister always talks about diversity. All his speeches talk about at least one aspect of women development. He talks about the disabled, the special, and he also talks about the transgenders. But we don't have time to talk about it now. But I would like to quickly tell you what he has done for women, and look at what he has done for women, and let's understand what we have to do for women in our own companies. For the first time in the history of independent India, the sex ratio has changed phenomenally. We were something like 931 girls versus 1,000 boys. But now we are 1,021 girls versus 1,000 boys. It's a phenomenal flip, I would say. Today, we see enrollments in schools. 30% of the girls are just simply getting into schools. And STEM graduates, girls, today have become exceptionally skilled in STEM studies like science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Today, women in India, 43% of the STEM graduates are women. We are ahead of America, we are ahead of UK, Germany, and France. And Prime Minister has made rural women millionaires, Lakpati Didi, he calls them. And recently, when I was in a very poor village in Bihar, I saw some of the women farmers being trained in drone technology. They are literally trained in drone technology. They could spray pesticides, fertilizers, etc. And look at what's happening in the startup ecosystem. 45% of the startups today have at least one woman director sitting there. And yesterday, as of yesterday, I was reading a report that said that 15% of the unicorns in India are led by women, which translates to something like maybe 3 lakh crores, because they're unicorns with a valuation of 7,000 crores. So this is what Prime Minister has done. Now, my question, perhaps to all of us, which we should be asking is, what is our company's vision for women? What, are we just filling vacancies? Have we gone beyond the brief to push women into the corner offices? Have we done anything different to push women, to pull women from the periphery into the mainstream? What have we done to get women into the leadership positions? These are the things that we should ask, not just looking at filling up vacancies and just be satisfied with just having 10% women on board with us. I think if we have to emulate and really take India to the next level, we have to do what Prime Minister has done. The third point, my friends, is about environment. Prime Minister articulated the net zero vision, and for some of us, we think that it is a recent vision, but not really so. I remember I was a part of the COP21, United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change, when our Honorable Prime Minister, 9 years ago in 2015 in France, he announced the International Solar Alliance. Imagine the vision of that senior leader we have sitting at the helm of affairs. He, at that point in time, negotiated, got 65 countries on board, and they signed up saying that we will enter into a solar alliance. And today we are talking about EV policy, we are talking about biofuels, we are talking about rooftop solar, and women getting trained in that. That is the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister. Now, coming to what we have to do in our organizations, what is our vision for the environment? How many of us really know what is ESG? How many of us believe that just ticking off the ESG checklist will qualify us and make us, comply with the ESG requirements? The people, the triple bottom line that we talk about, the people, planet, profit, triple bottom line, is just a slogan for us? Or are we actually implementing it? Unless we do all these things, we cannot match the vision of the Honorable Prime Minister. For instance, sometimes I always wonder, if there is no regulator and if there is no SEBI, will we actually be doing all these things? So how is our DNA? And the last point, my friends, is on governance. Prime Minister, when he actually sat on the responsible chair of the leader of the country, he said that he believes in maximum governance and minimum government, and that perhaps is the one that is responsible for pushing our country from a fragile 5 to a top 5. In this context, I am reminded of something very interesting that happened to China. I think about a decade ago, when China was really slipping in terms of its gross domestic product and the economy was turbulent, China went to IMF seeking funds. But I think Christine Lagarde was sitting at the helm of affairs at IMF, and she cautioned China. She said, "We will give you what you want, but don't invest that money in hard infrastructure. Don't build roads, don't build ports, don't build marquee infrastructure, glass and steel. Put the money in soft infrastructure." What is soft infrastructure? Put the money in governance, put the money in reforms, bring in transparency, bring in accountability. This is exactly what our Prime Minister has done. He has invested not only in hard infrastructure, he has invested in the soft infrastructure like governance, transparency, accountability, and marquee transformative reforms. Now, coming to our companies, how robust are our corporate governance plans?
You're going with it.
How many times do we do our toll gate reviews? Without, again, the compliance and regulatory compliances that we stick to, statutory committees, can we still have a good governance plan? If there is no thrust and pressure from SEBI and other regulators, can we actually stick to those good governance principles? I think these are the questions that we should ask. Now, let me conclude by quickly something that has always bothered me, which I'd like to share with a good platform like this. Whenever we sit on the board of a company and whenever we see the company from, the eagle eye, we always look at threats. We look at the external environment and we say the company needs, the risk assessment is like, the competitor profile, then the volatility of the currency, we look at the geopolitics. but little do we know about the internal threats. Lack of a vision is an internal threat, my friends. Lack of cohesive teams is an internal threat. Being surrounded by yes men is an internal threat. Not allowing people to wear black hats and throwing criticism periodically at you is an internal threat. Laziness is an internal threat. And these are the things that we are not paying attention to. Now tell me, where can we get good governance from? I mean, there are books and books and books, there are speeches and speeches. But if we don't speculate, if we don't get back to the basics, we are not going to get our governance in order. So these are the 4 important things that I wanted to share with you. Align our vision, corporate vision, with the vision of Prime Minister in terms of his vision, his diversity, his women orientation, his governance aspects, and the environmental focus. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and always happy to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, for your insights and guidance on this. What I could learn is, and a very louder message, very clear. What matters is investing in governance. That is the softer and underlying aspect. Instead, the soul of the entire activity, the hardwares, systems, policies will follow. So that's a very interesting message we have received towards, as a great contribution to this vision. Now I would like to welcome Madam Vini Thapar, and would be happy to introduce in a very brief manner